Okay, students, I've had lots of emails and lots of concern about this very first career awareness lesson plan, so I want to talk to you about it. So I also put my video on here so we can have a little face-to-face interaction because you've heard a lot about from me from my voice, but not from my face. So I want to make sure you see me and we connect. Okay, so don't worry. This is very doable. So you're going to download the template, the lesson plan template. I have provided you an example right up here. You're going to put your name, the grade level, career awareness, lesson plan, and then the title of your lesson plan. You'll need to put the title of your lesson plan. The very next thing in the template is the Oklahoma Academic Standards, and that's basically copying and pasting. So you're going to go to the Oklahoma Academic Standards, click on Social Studies, and find the standard from Oklahoma State Department of Education that aligns to what you are going to be teaching. So for this lesson plan, this student, for these kindergarten students, chose that the Economic Literacy Content Standard number 2. You're not writing this, you're copying and pasting it, and the student will identify basic economic concepts. That's the standard. Then they went down underneath in that Oklahoma Academic Standard website and found the objective that aligns to the career awareness lesson plan that they're going to be doing. For this lesson plan, this student chose to use the objective. He didn't write this. He or she did not write this. They copied and pasted it straight out of the Oklahoma Standard website. Explain how community people, including police officers, firefighters, soldiers, school personnel, business professionals, and medical personnel impact his or her life. And then you can see that they highlighted firefighter because the focus on this lesson is just firefighters. Now, you go down into the template and the objectives. Now, this part you are going to write. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to teach my kindergarten students about firefighters. What do I want them to know? I want them to know 2 things. I want them, after this lesson, to be able to identify firefighter gear and equipment. And number 2, I want them to be able to explain what a firefighter does, fire safety is, and apply that to how they impact his or her life. There's 2 objectives that you're going to write. The student will be able to blah, 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 blah. That's the first thing. And number 2, the student will be able to blah, 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 blah. That's the second thing. Now, here's the key. And I know lots of teachers that don't get this correct, so make sure you listen here. If you say that you want the students to be able to identify, then your activities and your materials and your instructions and the process that you're about to write is going to link to having them identify. Your assessment down here under scroll of assessment on part E should be you're assessing. Can they identify or can they not identify? You said in the objectives you want them to identify firefighter gear. So the assessment should have something to do with identifying firefighter gear. You can't assess them if they don't teach that. So make sure that you're teaching identifying firefighter gear or teaching students how to identify that and equipment. Also, in objective 2, you said you're going to, the student's going to be able to explain what a firefighter does, firefighter safety, and how it impacts their life. So somehow in your lessons that you're using and doing with your students, you're teaching them what a firefighter does. You're teaching them what a fire safety is. And you're teaching them and providing them activities with how does this impact their life. But now I'm going to look down here in this assessment and make sure, did they assess that a student is able to explain this? And if you say a student's going to be able to explain it, explaining usually happens with words. Or explaining usually happens with words. Or explaining usually happens with moving pictures to categories. So make sure if you say explain, then you're giving them opportunities in the assessment process to explain what a firefighter does, to show and explain what fire safety is, and to explain how they're going to apply that into their daily lives. There's the linkage right there. This part feeds into the Oklahoma Academic Standards right here. but the objectives are what you're going to write. And what you say you're going to do and what you want students to be able to do all aligns to the materials that you're going to use, the introduction. You always start a lesson with an introduction. You would never start a lesson with a just assessment unless it's a pre-assessment. And you're going to set the stage, show a video, ask them questions, do a KWL chart, do something to get them thinking in that direction. And then here's your activities, the instructional process. So activity 1, you're aligning it to objective 1 and 2, which is they're going to be able to identify firefighter gear, and they're going to be able to explain. Scrolling down. Now, activity 1, she's listed that here, but then she also aligned it to Gardner's multiple intelligence. You can't just be providing for your kinesthetics learners, or you cannot just be teaching to your visual learners, or you cannot just be teaching to your spatial learners. So you need to identify what types of learners did you teach to this lesson. Activity 2, objective 1 and 2. You might not teach both objectives in every lesson activity. You might just teach activity 1 might just focus on objective 1, and activity 2 might just focus on activity 2, and activity 3 might focus on both. It doesn't have to have both of them in every activity is what I'm getting at. So you write what you're going to do, think about all of that, and then what type, right here, ding, 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 what type of learners in Gardner's multiple intelligence did you teach to? That's just showing that you have an awareness of the different types of learners that there are in your classroom. Activity 3, tie it to the objective. List, she just had 1 right here, and that's fine. List, now you wouldn't just want 1 on all of them, and the same 1 on all of them. You want to reach all your different learners. Then closure. And when I go in and I evaluate my teachers, I always look for the opening and the closure, because you have to bring it, you have to set the stage as an actress and then close it up, set the curtain. And then the next day when you revisit it, you would say, remember students when we talked about firefighters and how they impact our lives. Today we're going to take that a step forward and we're going to blah, 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 blah. You always close that loop for your students and set the stage for your students so they're not confused and they're not engaged. This is big. This is the assessment. So this is where you're going to say, okay, I said I want students to be able to blank and be able to blank in those 2 objectives. So if you said you want them to be able to do that, then you have to assess it. And we've already talked about that. And then here's your adaptations, because you remember when we talked about differentiated learning in Module 2, I got to know, do you take account for that? Are you making adjustments for that? It doesn't have to be big, major things, but an awareness and little tweaks through your lessons to reach those differentiated learners and make those adaptations for all students. And then reflection, you don't have to do the reflection right now. Reflection is huge. And when you reflect on your teaching experiences of what you did good and what you didn't do good, it helps for your next experience. But for this lesson plan, you don't have to reflect, because you're really not doing this live with students. You're making this up basically and thinking what you would do. So there's no reflection right here, but I do not want you to miss that reflection in teaching after every lesson, whether it's formal and written down, or whether it's with one of your coworkers, or whether it's just yourself. Reflection is huge. So I hope this little walkthrough has helped you, and reach out. Your lesson plans are due at the end of this week. Have a great week.